Holy shit, we are live, people. It is the MMA Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We got a ton to break down. UFC 178 was this past Saturday. We saw the Flyweight Championship defended by Demetrius Johnson. We also saw a shitload of interesting fights. We're going to break them all down. We're also going to break down the week in MMA. A ton fucking happened. Random drug testing. Is it good? Is it bad? We're going to dive into that. We're going to dive into Chael and JR announcing Battleground this Friday. Kung Lee with a 12-month suspension. Of course, it is the first podcast of October, so we're going to talk about the fights we're pumped for. And we got 2 UFC cards this Saturday. We're going to break them both down. Let's do this shit, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go.
You're listening to the MMA Podcast!
Thank you, Lenny Hart. It is the 105th MMA Podcast. It is October 1st, 2014, at least here in Denver, Colorado. It might not be the first, it might be the second for the 2 panelists we're joined by tonight. Really quickly, if you do want to follow us, you can visit themmapodcast.com. You can follow us on Twitter at the MMA Podcast. You can tweet us at the MMA Podcast or call in 213 457-3380 is the number, and we do appreciate if you're listening live. We also have the archives on iTunes and YouTube. Just go to themmapodcast.com, visit the tabs at the top. Enough spouting bullshit about my own podcast, because my buddy Ramses does the Word on the Street. Last week we had Clayton Hires, one of the best Word on the Street shows we've ever done. A lot of really fun stories. Ramses, where do we follow you? Where do we find the Word on the Street?
The Aunt Jimmy Show on Twitter is exactly where you find me. I usually tweet, the news, the latest MMA rumors, disasters before anyone else, because I have what is called the Word on the Street. It's not just a gimmick. It's not just a clever nickname. I actually have it. I've proven myself time and time again. And I just want to take a minute here. And I know I usually come on here and tell jokes. We all have a good time, whatever. But this is serious. I'm going to, whoever the person is on Twitter that's been going around to my Twitter girlfriend, Katie Bear, and
Katie Bear, shout out.
Yeah, whoever it is that told her that I'm in a wheelchair and that I have sexually transmitted diseases, I'm going to find you. I already have my best people on it. All right? I'm going to find you. And that's the bottom line, because it is, as I like to say, the Word on the Street. You're welcome.
Ramses, you are welcome. Ramses, it is a shame you weren't in Vegas for UFC 175, or you could have met Katie Bear with me and the gang. The other guy who was coming. You were sick that week? We were there for a full, 6-7 days.
It took a while to recover, and plus I was supposed to be there, but you know how it goes, man. I got tied up at the office, the wife, kids. But I trusted you guys to meet up with Katie and just be gentlemen around her, and you guys betrayed me. But that's not for this podcast. We're here to talk MMA.
Check the pH level of that pool. You know who was in Vegas? The Hero Shenwu. Follow him on Twitter. Follow our boy Alan, the Westland Eagle AH. Follow Yao at Yao_the truth. Steve Mazzagatti apparently just retweeted a link to the show. Follow him wherever he can be followed. But really, if you're an MMA fan, the only Twitter account you need to be following is Ross Finkelstein, E before the L. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. He is back on the show. Ross, how are you doing? It is a pleasure to have you back, sir.
I'm doing pretty good. I don't need that kind of praise. I'm kind of humbled by that, so thank you, Jake. Yeah, it feels good to be back. It's late. Did not expect us to start this late. I'm exhausted. Yeah, That's about it.
It's hard
We're
times.
starting late as hell, but it doesn't matter. It's hard times. Let's dive straight into UFC 178. It was last Saturday, September 27th at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Pretty big gate, 2.2 million. And I guess we'll start by diving into the prelims as we always do. Let's start with the fight. The Fight Pass card, sorry, I had some in my throat there. We started with a bantamweight bout where Cody Gibson, really in that first round, seemed to be really outpacing Manny Gamburyan. If it would have gone to a judge's scorecard, I don't know how the third round would have worked out because Cody probably won the first, Manny won the second, but he squeezed on a guillotine choke that didn't look like technically, the most straight-on guillotine, but when he really squeezed it out, he forced Gibson to tap with only 4 seconds left in the second round. A really impressive win for Manny Gamburyan. And Kevin Lee, the Extreme Couture standout, defeating John Tuck via unanimous decision, 30-26 across the board. Then we move to the Fox Sports 1 prelims, where Brian Ebersol defeated John Howard via split decision 29-28, 28-29, 29-28. A really close bout there. Stephen Thompson defeating the Predator Patrick Cote via unanimous decision 29-28, 29-28, 30-27. Jorge Masvidal just outclassing James Krause in a unanimous decision 30-27, 29-28. 30-27. Really didn't see Krause winning a round in that one. Don't know what that second judge saw. And then we had Dominic Cruz coming back. He hadn't fought in almost 3 years, and he looked fresher than he had looked, in his last few title defenses. Just putting it to Takeya Mizugaki with the first round KO. Ross, what stood out for you? This really, probably the most stacked card of 2014, and I think the prelims lived up to it, even though we had 4 decisions out of 6 fights.
Well, what stood out right off the bat, of course, was Dominic Cruz. I mean,
Yeah, that was easy.
To be out for 3 years, to come back from 3 surgeries like that. I mean, 2 ACL surgeries, 1 quad surgery after a groin tear. That's a tough thing to do. And not only did he come back and win, he had the best performance of his career. He went in against a guy who's arguably the number 1 contender in the division on a 5-fight winning streak, has looked incredible as of late, and he just went out there and obliterated him. It knocked him out cold. I mean, he went out there, he moved around like the old Dominic Cruz. He was in and out with his footwork, bobbing and weaving. And
You think it was a late stoppage?
I don't know. I think it was at the right time. Might have been a little bit late, but it's difficult to tell, and it's a tough decision in there. But that was a beautiful performance. George Masvidal, he's lazy as shit when it comes to training and dieting, but he is really, really talented. I really want to see him get a step up in the division. He's been kind of like fighting as a gatekeeper for the last year in the UFC, and I think it's time for him to really get a step up because he's earned it. He's on a 3-fight winning streak, I think, now. His only loss in the UFC is that fight against Rustam Khabilov, which was a really close fight of the night back in November of last year. So it's time for a step up for him. Another guy who stood out, Stephen Thompson. I love Stephen Thompson. He's a fantastic fighter. He's getting better and better with his grappling, his wrestling. He's an amazing striker. Unbelievable kickboxer, undefeated as a kickboxer.
He's in a tough weight class, though.
He's in probably the 2nd or 3rd toughest weight class in the UFC. I mean, welterweight, lightweight, and featherweight are just absolutely stacked right now. It's really I believe it's a golden age kind of for talent in MMA. I think right now in the UFC, there's never been a better roster. We're just blessed to have so many talented fighters who are just so good, and this was a card that really showcased like the changing of the guard kind of. And although it wasn't really old, it wasn't really new beating old. It was more the sense we just saw a lot of the new faces, and yeah, there were some older faces, but these are guys who are really now, who were before kind of fighting on the prelims, fighting in the shadows, and now they're really becoming the stars. Guys like Conor McGregor and Jorge Masvidal and Stephen Thompson. These guys are the future of the UFC. And then on the prelims, the other fight that stood out to me was Cody Gibson and Manny Gambarian. I thought Cody Gibson was going to destroy Manny Gambarian, and that's exactly what was happening. And then Manny Gambarian just caught a guillotine. And wow. It was unexpected. But I think Cody Gibson wins that fight 9 times out of 10. So
if Brian Caraway loses to Rafael Asunciao, do you make that fight Caraway versus Gambarian?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not Joe Silva, but I guess
I think they should. Yeah.
Fight.
He called him out. Ramses, UFC 178, the prelims. What did you take away from it? Obviously, Dominic Cruz coming back. He hadn't fought in a long while, and he just decimated a game to Takaya Mizugaki. What were your impressions there?
Dominic Cruz, he actually looked very impressive and back in this fight. Of course, that doesn't change the fact that this was, in my opinion, a courtesy work for him. Not a setup or anything like that. But they gave him an easy opponent, a very questionable opponent for his comeback fight. The fight was a work, people. But it was impressive to see. I didn't expect him to actually be using his patented footwork again. He brought it out. It looked good. It was believable. He got out of there uninjured. He laid down an honest-to-goodness beatdown. Those punches were real, 100%. He went for the finish. He got it quick. Again, though, when he steps it up a notch, when he has to... What if he had to fight Uriah that night, though? Nothing against faggots, but I'm tired of seeing all these queers in the UFC. What if he'd had to fight Uriah Faber that night? I don't know, man. He might have gotten both knees just broken, and then his like upper body telescopes into his legs live on pay-per-view. Or well, it wasn't on pay-per-view actually. Yeah, what was up with that too? The UFC didn't trust him, but he's back in my opinion. It was a courtesy work, but he made the best of it. It went as planned. God bless him. I like Cruz. He's solid. He's on my team, if you know what I'm saying. Unlike you sons of bitches, Jake and Ross.
10,000.
Also, but this was the perfect example of what I said the moment I appeared on the podcast tonight. I told you people, I have the word in the street because I proved myself time and time again. And this weekend, UFC 178, I only gave out one bet pick, one solid lock. And I told you, I begged you on Twitter to bet everything on Brian Ebersol winning. He was a 2-1 underdog against John Doomsday Howard, whatever the hell his name was. And it was the end of the world for Doomsday. Process that. Cash it. I hope you did. I sure as hell did. I won't even tell you people how much money I made on Ebersol. He's back. He's one of the best in the business. One of my top favorite fighters of all time. Watch the fight. It was perfection. He's a grinder, but it's entertaining. And he is Brian Ebersol. He made a ton of money. And once again, I had the word on the street. I had the correct call. It's the only bet I made and told you people to make. I begged you people to double everything you had in your bank account. And none of you fucking listened. And that's the word on the street. You're welcome. Word on the street.
That's right. It was quick thoughts, Ross. I do really concur with your thought. Cody Gibson, a very underrated bantamweight. I think most times he does beat Manny. He showed off just looking like a better fighter in the first round, but that guillotine Manny locked up, he was really sure of getting it. Cody tapped. Kevin Lee, an extreme Couture standout, coached by Robert Follis, who we've talked to on the Word on the Street podcast. Shout out to Kevin Lee and the Extreme Couture team. Shout out to Brian Ebersol, who we actually got a chance to talk to after UFC 167. pardon me, he gave a shout out to the Word on the Street podcast. And one thing that we'll talk about Cruz, and Cruz definitely was the biggest story of the prelim card. Hadn't fought in such a long time. I was honestly most curious to see if he could keep moving around the way he used to. And he looked the exact same. He did not look a mile per hour slower. He was throwing with vengeance. Dominic Cruz was obviously the story of the prelim card, but we gotta give some props to Jorge Masvidal. He started out as a street fighter, and the guy has expanded and evolved his game to be a true, top 15, top 20 guy in my opinion, the most stacked division in the UFC at 155 pounds. I don't know if he has the skills to crack the top 5, but he has some really impressive wins. He beat James Krause, beat Darren Cruikshank, beat Pat Healy. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. The guy beat Michael Chiesa via submission. Michael Chiesa is a game Brazilian jiu-jitsu artist. Man, it was a very, very interesting card. We're talking about the prelims, but we got to move it up to the main card. And let's go fight by fight. Cat Zingano defeating Amanda Nunes. The first round, Cat probably lost. She spent a lot of time on the bottom, and I really wasn't sure. Cat, I'll admit, is my favorite women's fighter. She's from Colorado. It's hard not to rally behind her story of not only getting the title shot, but then getting injured and losing it. But the terrible tragedy she went through and her husband killing himself, and she's making her return. I think she was out for almost 2 years, and really no pun intended, but roared back. A 3rd-round finish, TKO via elbows and punches. Ross, what did you think of Kat coming back, probably in a bout that was, according to Dana, impressive enough to earn her a title shot against Ronda Rousey?
Yeah, Kat Zingano looked fantastic. She showed a lot of heart and then absolutely destroyed Amanda Nunes from the second round on. She absolutely deserves the fight with Ronda Rousey, and that's going to happen January 2nd, barring any injury, which very much could happen. There's going to be no Gina Carano shit to interrupt this fight. It's finally going to happen. She finally gets what she deserves. She's got a great story. She's got a lot of skill. She's got a lot of heart. She does not beat Ronda Rousey. It's going to end within a minute of the first round. Ronda's the best boxer in the division. She's the best grappler in the division. She's the best fighter in the division by far. Nobody will challenge her. Chris Cyborg won't challenge her. Holly Holm won't challenge her. Nobody. It's Ronda's division, and that's that.
Well, I have to swallow my pride and agree with the kid here. Yep. Good performance from Kat. I actually, as soon as the halfway into that first round, come on, we all thought it was all over, that we would never even have to mention her name again. She would just be dead to us. Kat Zingano will rest in peace. Nobody expected anything magical from her, but she turned it around. All right? She dug down. And there's a point when every MMA fighter has a choice whether to dig down or take the easy way out, which we see all the time. The people that dig down, I respect them. They've quickly become my favorite fighters. That moment is called the reckoning, and Kat Zingano had one. And she passed the test. She kept fighting. She dominated. And, of course, as soon as the fight was waved off and she was, of course, victorious, the first thing she did was cry like a female. So she got 2 points off for that, in my opinion. But still, good performance. Title shot next, of course. The heel up. God bless.
God bless. And normally we would move to the next fight, Tim Kennedy versus Yoel Romero, but we are going to save that because we're going to break down Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier first. Why? It was a really interesting fight. But most importantly, just a few minutes ago, it was announced that Conor McGregor, his next fight is announced. He's going to be taking on Diego Sanchez. And, oh my God, Jesus Christ. Thank God we're live so we can be one of the first people to break it down. Oh my God, this is going to be a hell of a fight. But first, let's talk about Conor versus Dustin Poirier. There was so much bad blood going down. At pressers, at the weigh-ins, they were just getting in one another's face. There obviously was a lot of vitriol, and Conor McGregor winning the fight a minute 46 into the first round, TKO. Conor, we all assumed, was going to be going to Brazil, and it was going to call out the winner of Jose Aldo versus Chad Mendes. But news is leaking down now that he will be taking on Diego Sanchez November 15th, I do believe. Ross, let me pass it to you first. What did you make of the fight against Poirier, and what do you make of this news that is just coming down literally right now that he's going to be taking on Diego Sanchez?
Well, I think we should take it kind of with a grain of salt because he was the one to tweet it out. He was the one to say, "Oh, I'm fighting Diego Sanchez in Mexico." But this could just be Conor trolling. This could be Conor trying to get the fight. Maybe Conor knows something we don't. Maybe Diego's opponent pulled out. Is Diego even scheduled on that card? I can't even remember at this this time. I think he's supposed to fight Norman Park, maybe, but.
Yep.
Maybe Norman Park's out and Conor knows and we don't, and he's got that fight. As far as I'll comment on that fight in a second, which is a joke of a fight. But
it really is. Diego
Conor,
gets lit up.
Oh, absolutely. But going into the fight against Poirier, a lot of people were doubting Conor. A lot of people were thinking this is the fight Conor gets derailed, and I really just didn't see it. I truly believe Conor is the future of the division. I think. As long as his wrestling and grappling abilities can hold up, which I believe they can. I believe they're improving, and I think his striking ability is just on a completely different level. I believe he's the best striker in the division by far. I think the only person in the division who can challenge him on the feet because of his style and his movement and his angles is Cub Swanson. But I think Cub eventually gets hit and Conor finds his chin within 2 rounds. I just think Conor's on a different level. I think Conor lights up Jose Aldo in 1 round. I think what Conor said something very, very powerful in his post-fight speech. He was talking about how all these fighters come out with this flat-footed Thai boxing stance, and it's very, very true. And it really kind of opened my eyes because you don't really think about that. But when you watch these fighters, they do that. And guys like Conor, guys like TJ Dillashaw, guys like Dominic Cruz, they don't come out like that. They come out with this unorthodox style where they're light on their feet, they're moving in and out, they're cutting angles, and they're coming from all different sides. And you don't know what's coming next. That's powerful. The future of MMA. So I believe Conor McGregor is the future of the division, and I think Diego Sanchez is just a warm-up fight for him and a fight to just elevate him even further. It's a big win. He gets to fight at lightweight. He won't cut weight. And if you don't think Conor McGregor's going to Brazil anymore, you are definitely wrong. Conor McGregor's going to Brazil. He's going to confront the winner of Jose Aldo versus Chad Mendes, if the fight even happens. Who knows? Conor could end up in that fight. He could end up fighting Aldo in Brazil in just a few weeks. Anything can happen at this point. But one way or another, he's going to be in Brazil, and he's going to confront the winner, or he's going to fight.
I just put 2 fingers in there. I searched around her asshole.
Ramses, I know you've probably got a strong opinion about Conor. What did you think about his win against Dustin? And the news is coming down that we might see Conor versus Diego. What do you think about all this bullshit?
Yeah, well, I suspect that the news about McGregor fighting Diego Sanchez in Mexico is bullshit or maybe a little premature. I'm having a hard time buying it, but then again, it wouldn't actually surprise me. His fight against Poirier. Um, I said it, I suspected it, and it was confirmed. You all people, all of you people saw it, but you're all in denial. In my opinion, the Conor McGregor fight versus Dustin Poirier fight was worked. It was a work. Uh, DP Poirier, he took a dive. People, it was obvious. It was another classic example of basically what amounts to a phantom punch. All right, you guys all see it. He got clipped supposedly in the back of the head, and that finally was the thing that dropped Dustin Poirier a couple seconds or a minute or so into the first round. Right, right. But of course, this is just like when I had the word on the street. Tried to warn all you people about the Boston manhunt for the Bombers and how it was just ridiculous and everybody was just drinking the Kool-Aid. That the heat on Conor McGregor is just too hot. It's too hot. You people saw with your own eyes a work happen.
In his own
that
tweet,
knockout was fake.
In his own tweet, he says 18 minutes ago, quote, "I am fighting Diego Sanchez in Mexico, November 15th. He spoke a big game. Now he will pay with his career. Viva la aire."
Well, why not? That's the thing. The UFC. I mean, you have to build stars right now, right? It's a rebuilding year. Conor McGregor is one of the biggest things since Ronda Rousey. Of course, they're going to build him up. He is in basically non-compete mode. That's the word on the street that I got, all right? He's going to be untouchable for at least his next two fights. They're all going to be worked. Everybody's going to take a dive to this kid, fold up like a tent. Why? It's sports entertainment, people. Don't lie to yourselves. So if he is taking on Diego Sanchez, that's all the more proof that it's a work. This guy's hand's broken. He was admitting it left and right. And then he's just going to come back, a few weeks later? Come on, people. They're protecting him from now on with good reason. I do the same thing. I'm not saying like don't watch the fight, don't buy the pay-per-view. I'm just telling you what the real deal is, believe it or not. The fight was a work, and this next one's going to be a work too. Conor's next fight's going to be a work too. They're going to try to belt him as quickly as possible, in my opinion. You got to do it. He'll sell pay-per-views, and that is, however you feel about it, the bottom line. Word on the street.
Yeah, you sound like you're on a roll, so I'm just going to throw it right back to you. Tim Kennedy versus Yoel Romero was the fight we skipped so we could get straight to the McGregor-Sanchez fight. But what did you think of Kennedy versus Yoel? It was the fight of the night. It was back and forth. And obviously the two things that keep being brought up are Stoolgate, the fact that Yoel was allowed to sit on the stool for 28 straight seconds after he got battered and bruised at the end of round 2. And also a little bit of Glovegate. A lot of people are saying that Kennedy was illegally messing with Yoel's glove standing up. To me, watching it, it looked like he was just using wrist control legally, and then after that, for maybe 4 or 5 seconds, his fingers got caught in Yoel's glove, and then he pulled it out. But yeah, I'm sort of on Tim's side here. You know, call me biased because he's been on the show. 6 or 7 weeks ago. But, yeah, I really didn't think the whole glove thing was that big of a deal because most of it was him using legal wrist control, and the whole stool thing was ridiculous. You know, Yoel was on roller skates at the end of round 2, and the fact that he got an extra 30 seconds, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in fighting, being able to take an extra 30 seconds off between rounds is a huge deal. I don't agree with it. I think it should be changed to a no contest. But Ramses, you were on a streak, on a hot roll there. Give us your hot take on Yoel Romero versus Tim Kennedy. Should it be turned over to a no contest?
Yeah, I'm just rewatching the fight right now as we speak. No, it should not be overturned. Look, what happened. Tim Kennedy, he's from my hometown of Austin, Texas, and I still don't have his back. I'm still not a fan. I'm not saying I hate him or anything. I'm just not a fan of the guy. All right? A little dojo beef, but, that's That's not for the public consumption. But this fight, Kenny Romero, it's like, dude, just it's time to just, sometimes we're embarrassed to the point that where we start convincing ourselves that it didn't happen. We're in actual denial. This man, in all of his points, never even brought up the fact that he was knocked out cold in the third round, and that's what ended the fight. He was knocked out by a zombie, basically, by someone that was out on his feet, someone that had already been defeated. I mean, Tim Kennedy, that he says he won the fight twice. Well, Jesus, that's all the more embarrassing for you if you just beat a guy twice and he gets up and knocks you out like a bum. Sorry, Tim Kennedy. This is the equivalent of he's a zombie fanatic or whatever. This is like on The Walking Dead when T-Dog, when he got finally killed off on the show by just some random zombies that turned the corner, popped out of nowhere. Rawr, rawr, just tore into his ass. T-Dog. And he was a main character.
God damn it.
He was embarrassed,
R.I.P.
humiliated.
T-Dog.
Exactly. And that's exactly what happened to Tim Kennedy. A zombie popped out of
R.I.P.
nowhere
Dale.
and ate his ass and killed him and just humiliated him in front of millions of people and all his family and friends. And Tim, man, you just got to eat this one. You got to let it go. Tim Kennedy is notorious himself for being a dirty fighter. He pulls cheats left and right. He's the king of the low blow, the nut shot, and the eye poke. And then this glove thing, holy shit, that's just something new I haven't seen before. It's just a new one for him. So he's adding to his repertoire and he's complaining, crying. I mean, oof, what do your fellow troops think about, you're just whining? Is that what they teach you in camp? Is that what the medals are for? Word on the street.
Word on the street. We will get to the Jew, but actually we are joined by the Westland Eagle himself. First off, before we dive into the fights, how are you doing, buddy? Hell yeah, bunch of silence from the Eagle. Alan, are you there?
Hey, pussy, you still there?
Hey, pussy, you still there? I guess not. I'm going to let him go. So we'll go to Ross. What did you think about Kennedy versus Yoel? I do think Yoel definitely was in control of most of that fight, but Kennedy was beating him the fuck up at the end of that second round, and I really do think that extra 30 seconds Yoel got made a difference in him being able to finish the fight. What do you think, Finkelstein, you son of a bitch?
You're right. Yoel Romero was dominating that fight. I mean, Tim Kennedy had nothing for him for pretty much 2.5 rounds, but Yoel Romero did exactly what he does every single time he fights. He gassed. He doesn't have the gas tank to go that long. He's got all that muscle on him, yet he pulls out these third-round knockouts, which is pretty weird, but he does not have a great gas tank, and he got tired. But when he has that energy, he is world-class. I mean, this guy is an incredibly powerful southpaw who kind of hangs back, and he kind of just lulls you in, and then all of a sudden, boom, he strikes, and he just hits you with heavy, heavy, heavy shots. And he's got a great knee, he's got heavy, heavy hands, and he's got a blast double, which is incredible. I mean, he got Tim Kennedy with it once or twice during that fight. Tim could do nothing to him. I mean, Yoel.
Where do you think he ranks in the middleweights?
He's right outside the top 5. He's like number 7 in the division. He's not the best guy in the division, and I personally don't believe that he'll ever even fight for the title. I was actually with Ray Longo the other day. I was training with Ray, and we were talking about that fight, and he truly believes that Yoel Romero will never fight Chris because he thinks in his next fight, or maybe a fight after that, he's going to get derailed by someone with better cardio and someone who has the right skill set to beat him. Someone like Jacare could beat him. Someone like Luke Rockhold can beat him. He's been vulnerable in many fights, and he was vulnerable in this fight. I mean, he got hurt. He was absolutely blasted at the end of the second round by Tim Kennedy, and whether or not he held the glove, I don't know. I kind of think he was holding the wrist, and he kind of slipped into the glove, and he didn't do it on purpose, and he caught him with a couple shots while he was in the glove. I don't think it really played a difference. I don't think it made a difference. It didn't play a factor in the fight. He was hurt. He was rocked. He was being held up by the cage. He was done practically. And the extra 20 seconds on the stool was ridiculous. I mean,
how ridiculous was that shit?
If the fighter fails to answer the bell for the next round, the fight's over. It's a TKO victory. You call off the fight. If he does not get off the stool for the next round, the fight's over. And Big John McCarthy fucked up, and he did not call the fight when he should have, because that fight was over completely. Tim Kennedy did get screwed there, and so far most people that I talked to, including Ray Longo, believe that Tim Kennedy was screwed. I have mixed feelings about a rematch. Part of me thinks, you know what, just move on in the division. Yoel Romero got the win, just move on, and that's that. But at the same time, you know, a guy kind of got screwed here, and this was a big fight in the division when you really think about it. And both guys were on big winning streaks. Both guys were on 4-fight winning streaks. This really was a fight to elevate one of them up to the next level and really put one of them in position to fight for the title. So it's a very important fight. I think it could headline a fight night, a rematch. I say rematch, but who knows?
I wouldn't mind a rematch at all, and I'm totally in Tim's corner here. The fact that Yoel got that extra time, I think, was a huge factor in him being able to get that third round finish. And actually, let's listen to the audio of a background exchange between Yoel and Tim right after the fight.
King, what the f***? Hey, if you can't get off the stool, that's the end of the fight. You don't stand there for another minute. You're not fighting. Let's go.
And my favorite part of that was Yoel walking up being like, Tim! And Tim's just like, what the fuck?
King, what the f***?
What the fuck? Man, Yoel definitely looked like the better striker. He looked like the better wrestler, which is why I'm not that distraught over it. It's just really a shame that Yoel was able to get that extra time after the second round. We will move on, though, to the co-main event. Donald Cerrone taking on Eddie Alvarez in a fight that, in my eyes, was scored perfectly. Cerrone won the fight 29-28. Eddie looked good early, but Donald Cerrone just pouring it on. Really the most... We have not seen Cerrone's chin tested this much since the Nate Diaz fight. And in the Nate Diaz fight, Cerrone seemed to give up. But Eddie Alvarez poured it on in the first round. He landed a lot of very, very brisk, tough shots to Donald's chin. And Donald moved past it, won the second round, won the third round. His chin, I would say, was very suspect before this fight, but that had to have been the biggest aspect of the fight, just showing off an iron chin, moving through him in the second and third round. Eddie, I don't know who he gets next, but Donald Cerrone, he's either going to get a title shot next or going to get a number one title contendership fight next. I don't see him fighting more than one more time before getting a title shot. Ross, what did you think about Donald Cerrone versus Eddie, and how close do you think Donald is to a title shot?
Donald has really turned a corner in his career. He's starting to use his length, and that's really what's getting him all these victories. He's found his rhythm, and he's finally realizing his potential and realizing what he can do with that reach and that size and the length of his legs. He's a long, lanky guy, and he's got fantastic Muay Thai, and it's getting better and better and better, and it's getting better suited for MMA. He's got amazing kicks. He doesn't have the best wrestling in the world, but he has great counters and great defense for that. Whenever a guy gets in close, He knees them. He throws that lead knee, that step knee, and it takes the wind out of you. I mean, he was hitting that on Eddie. He was getting that on Jim Miller. It is a devastating technique, and it really stops the takedowns. I mean, I don't see him stopping the takedowns of someone like Khabib. I think Khabib is the best fighter in the division, personally. I truly believe he'll be the champion, and no one can stop his wrestling. But Cerrone has really, really turned a corner, and this was a brilliant performance. In the first round, he got hit with a couple of hard shots. He got lit up, but he kept his composure. He kept his calm, and he's kind of a slow starter, like he says. He admits to it. That's just how he is. That's just how he fights, and he gets better as the fight goes on. And he started chopping that leg of Eddie, and he just chopped it down to the point where Eddie couldn't walk. He got rid of Eddie's movement, and the key for Eddie to win this fight was to just keep moving. I mean, if Eddie was going to win this fight, it was going to be off his movement and getting the angles and hitting Cerrone and using his boxing to light Cerrone up and trying to move in and out and not get hit with those step-in knees and not get hit with those leg kicks or head kicks in general, or any kick in general. But he got hit with those leg kicks, and that took away his movement, and that was that. Brilliant performance by Donald Cerrone, and he definitely deserves a number one contenders fight next. I don't think he deserves a title shot next, because there's Rafael dos Anjos, who's ahead of him, and there's also Khabib, who's ahead of Rafael dos Anjos. So there's two people there. I think the best fight for him is either a fight with maybe a rematch with Rafael dos Anjos, although it might be a little bit too soon. There's rumblings of the Miles Jury fight, which is a fantastic fight, and that's
what do you think about the fight? It's not announced yet, but what if they do get matched up, Miles Jury against Donald Cerrone? Who are you leaning toward there?
Cerrone has looked incredible as of late, but there's something special about Miles Jury, and every time he goes out there, he looks just better and better, and there's always something different to his game. And in his last fight, just last week against Takanori Gomi, he looked unbelievable. I mean, he looked like a world class. He looked like a world champion out there. He just, the way he stood there, his stance just really impressed me, and how quickly he was able to dispatch Gomi. I mean, he's the first person to finish Gomi off with strikes. No one's ever done that, and here's Miles Jury, and he does it. That's a huge win for him. Cerrone's a big step up, but I kind of lean Miles Jury in that fight. I just think the wrestling will be a factor, and I just think he's surrounded by fantastic training partners, most notably Dominic Cruz. That's a good guy to be training with.
Yeah. And really quickly, before we shift gears to Ramses, I don't know if we got your thoughts on a potential fight against Kat Zingano and Ronda Rousey at UFC 182. Does Kat have much of a chance against the reigning bantamweight champion, Rousey? You there?
Your mic's not on, pussy.
Hey, pussy, are you still there? Your mic's not on.
Wow, this kid, man. You try to raise him right.
He is gone, so I guess we'll just switch it up to Ramses. Ramses, what did you think about the fight, the co-main event fight between Donald Cerrone and Eddie Alvarez? The man probably ran off to take a piss or sniff some more meth. We won't ever know. But Donald Cerrone, looking very impressive, took a lot of shots against Eddie Alvarez, stayed tough, won the fight.
What did Ross do? Just finish his answer and then immediately run away?
He dropped the
from his
mic
computer?
like Kanye. Bow. And then he stepped away. And really quick, our boy Big Daddy Bombs at JDopeBoy519 tweeted in during the Conor fight. He said, I don't know if it was fixed for sure, but I do know there was some huge bullshit in it. 3 illegal blows and an early stoppage, and just now he tweeted in, this makes more sense now, and it's an envelope with a bunch of money, and it is from you, and it says, and trust me, people, the highest paid fighter at UFC 178 was Dustin Poirier. Word on the street. He's insinuating that you either paid him or you knew of payment, but you already called it out. Donald Cerrone and Eddie Alvarez, was that also a paid-off fight? Give us the word on the street.
Yeah, shout out to JB839 or whatever. Yeah, see, he's beginning to
JB839,
believe.
shout out.
He's beginning to believe, and that's what happens when a reasonable person is just reminded for 1 second. Step off the hype train for just clear your head for a minute. Just hear me out on this. That punch made no sense. It was a phantom knockout. They had all the reason in the world to work this. Millions of dollars at stake, building the star. It makes sense. What would you do? This guy actually listened to me, and now he's already turning around. God bless him. He gets it, people. It's all common sense here. It's all about the bottom line in this business. But, yeah, sorry, but I digress. This Fury, what to make of this one? Well, Conor, holy shit! I just.
It's all about the money. It's all about the money.
I completely threw myself off on that entire rant. I apologize.
I smoke another joint, I'll break it down. Sometimes you hide your weed and you don't know where you put it, but you get high and you'll find it.
I will admit that I have been smoking marijuana this night. Having a little cocktail. It's been a long week for me. A lot of changes in my life going on right now.
You got what I need.
Yep. And there's the fiasco with trying to find out who's been spreading rumors and ruining my online relationships with women.
What?
Saying that I'm in a wheelchair.
Like a doctor.
I'm sorry, Jake. What was the question?
The question is, what did you think about Donald Cerrone versus Eddie Alvarez?
that's
Should
right.
Cerrone get a title shot? Was it a work?
Oh man, that's the thing. That's the whole problem here. Everybody's asking about Cerrone.
What?
The biggest story is what happened to Eddie Alvarez. Completely collapsed. Stock took a plunge. It's off the market now. You can't. The UFC is trying to give this guy away at this point. They want to tear up this guy's contract on the spot. All right, but at the same time, Cerrone is on fire lately. I will give him that. He did have at least 10 warm-up fights for this year to Eddie Alvarez's 0. Okay? And, you know, I don't know about ring rust. I think it all depends on just the mind. It's a mindset thing, you know. There's no actual reason why you shouldn't be able to perform. But that's neither here nor there. Eddie Alvarez, the opinion is no one's even talking about him. He embarrassed himself, his countrymen, brown people, Hispanic people,
10,000
his friends and family and fans, the UFC, Bellator. The only person laughing was Bjorn Rebney. He's the only person happy about this. It's a damn shame because I believed in Eddie Alvarez. I was ready to buy stock. I was believing, man. I was gonna bet actual money on Eddie, but then I was like, wait, what am I doing? This guy hasn't fought in a long time, and he's going up against Cowboy, and he's a company man, but they're also trying to build him up as the greatest gatekeeper of the division, and he's easy to buy off. Like Cowboy's real cheap. Eddie Alvarez is not $1 million a fight, and trust me, they're glad he lost because they're going to use this. He's not going to outmuscle them in the next contract negotiation the way he's going right now. Totally embarrassing. He got nailed with all Cerrone did was spam leg kicks. That's I don't even fall for that in the EA UFC game. Word on the street.
Word on the street, and before we move on to the Flyweight Championship, Ross, are you back? Because I did want to pass to you what you thought about Kat Zingano's chances against Ronda Rousey. We're getting into that a little bit.
I don't think she has much of a chance at all. Ronda Rousey, like I said before, is just on a completely different level. She's the best fighter in the division by far. She's the best boxer in the division. She's the best grappler in the division. She's got better jiu-jitsu. Well, maybe not pure jiu-jitsu, but she's got better grappling, period, with her judo, mixed in with her jiu-jitsu. She's unbelievable. Her hands are getting really, 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 really good. I don't know how well it's going to translate into a fight, but as far as her mitt work videos and her training videos, her hands are looking sharp. And her last fight, she used her boxing to hit Alexis Davis with a nice little combination, nailed her with an overhand right, and then nailed her with a knee, which obviously a knee is not boxing, but she nailed her with a knee, threw her, and that was that. I just don't see any way Kat Zingano beats Ronda Rousey, especially with the way she's been fighting. I mean, Kat seems more like a slow starter in the UFC. You know, her only 2 UFC fights, she was really kind of dominated for the in the first fight, her Miesha Tate fight. She was getting beat for 2 rounds, and then pulled off the 3rd round comeback and won the fight via TKO. And the same thing happened in the Amanda Nunes fight, except the comeback started a little bit earlier. It happened at the end of the 1st round instead of in the 3rd round. Nevertheless, you don't want to be a slow starter against Ronda Rousey, because Ronda Rousey is going to pressure you from bell to bell. So
if you're Silva, if you're Joe Silva, do you give Kat another fight before the title fight, or do you just give her Ronda Rousey right now?
No, she gets a title shot, absolutely. I mean, why hold back? There's no reason she shouldn't get the title shot. Betch Correia is the only other person really who could get the argument to get the next shot, but Betch should fight one more time, get to 10-0, and then that's a big fight for the division. I mean, that's
you think Betch has a chance against Ronda? I don't.
Absolutely not. Betch is a mediocre fighter. She's subpar. She's not the best in the division. She's not the 2nd best in the division. She's not the 3rd best. She's not top 5. She's fringe top 10. But
she's like a women's Leonard Garcia. No offense.
Sorta. But she, nevertheless, has a storyline going and is marketable for this fight. So it's definitely a fight that we'll see. Honestly, I think we could end up seeing that fight in March, because Dana's already said that Ronda's going to fight in January, and then she's going to film a movie, and then he's hoping she'll get back in there in March, which I think is kind of a quick turnaround, but if that's what he says. That's what he says.
You know, it's not been the best year for UFC champions. You have Kane, who's been injured, waiting on the tough fight against Verdum. Pettis, the same thing, injured, waiting on the tough fight against Melendez. You have John Jones, who was going to fight Cormier at UFC 178 this past Saturday. Instead, that's been pushed to July 3rd. You have Weidman, who was going to fight Belfort. That fight's been pushed ahead. You have Hendricks, who had bicep surgery. It has not been a pretty year. And we had UFC 178, which was a very stacked card. And it was a shame that the main event was maybe the fight that was one of the least looked forward to, because we all knew it was going to be a very one-sided fight. The UFC, the promos, and Chris Carriasso, they put out a lot of ads to make you think, oh, well, if TJ Dillashaw could upset Hendon Barao, then I can upset Mighty Mouse. This just was not the case. Chris had gotten shots against top flyweights like John Moraga, like Hussier de Silva, and he didn't win those fights. He beat Luis Smolka to get a shot at the title, and the only reason he got a shot was because none of these other flyweights had not fought him, / weren't injured, / weren't ready to fight, and this very much seemed like a rush title shot. Carriasso, you know, I do think he is a quality fighter and deserves to be in the UFC, but at the same time, he will be looked at as one of the least deserving title contenders we've seen in the last few years, especially the way that Mighty Mouse put it to him. The fight only lasted about 7.5 minutes, and it was all Mighty Mouse from pillar to post, and Mighty Mouse ended up finishing the fight via Kimura, second round. What did you think of the fight? What do you think's next for Mighty Mouse? I think the next, it seems like the most logical next step for Mighty Mouse. He says he doesn't want to fight again until early 2014. A fight against John Dodson makes the most sense. Aside from that, he might fight Dodson. He might fight, John Lineker. I mean, he is closer to quote, cleaning out his division than I think any other fighter. He's a easily top 5 pound for pound. Ross, what did you think of the fight, and what's next for Mighty Mouse?
It was exactly how I thought it would go. It's exactly how most people thought it. I mean, it was a complete domination, and it was a complete mismatch from the get-go. Nobody thought Chris Carriasso had a chance. The UFC didn't think he had a chance. They marketed it to us like he had no chance. They basically told us from day one, this guy has no chance, but don't trust the odds just because we have to sell it to you somehow. So here's Demetrius Johnson versus some guy and 2 other really good fights. That's how they sold it. It was, here's Demetrius Johnson, and hey, look, Conor McGregor. That was how they sold this pay-per-view, Conor McGregor. Demetrius Johnson may very well be the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, but he'll never get that credit because of the fact that he is 5'2", 5'3", and fights at 125 pounds. It's a shame that flyweights and smaller guys don't get the credit they deserve. It's the same thing in boxing, too. I mean, Ramon Gonzalez is an unbelievable fighter. He is the flyweight champion of the world right now. And this guy, he's 40-0 with 36 knockouts, I believe. Probably one of the top 5 pound-for-pound best fighters in the world in boxing, yet he doesn't get the credit he deserves. Same thing with Demetrius Johnson. Guy doesn't get the credit he deserves. He's an unbelievable fighter that just gets better and better and better and better and better every single fight. He has virtually no flaws in his game whatsoever. He has very little holes, and you really have to be quick to catch him. The only person who's been quick enough to catch him is John Dodson, but Dodson is out for a while because he just had ACL surgery a couple months back. So he'll be back early 2015. I think the next fight for Demetrius isn't John Dodson. I think Dodson will be the fight after that. I think DJ either fights Formiga or he fights the winner of McCall versus Lineker, which is supposed to go down in November, I think. That's a very good fight, too. There's a good story with Ian McCall because there's a win and then a draw to him. They're kind of controversial there because a lot of people thought Ian McCall won the fight at the time, myself included. Kind of have to go back and rewatch that to really form an opinion now. But yeah, there are interesting fights there, but Demetrius has nearly cleaned out this entire division, which is incredible because the division's only been around for 2 years. But he's the most active champion in the UFC, and he is just fighting not month after month, but he's fighting every couple months, and that's been consistent since he's been in the UFC. Eventually, he's got to fight a super fight, whether it's another fight with Dominic Cruz or a fight with TJ Dillashaw. He's got to fight one of those eventually.
Do you think Mighty Mouse would have lost that 4th round against Uncle Creepy if it had been scored correctly in Australia?
I don't know. It's difficult to say.
That always stands out because that one fight, it was scored a draw, and it's, one of those freak things that it was one of the first UFC cards that was scheduled to go to a 4th round if it became a draw, but the Athletic Commission fucked up. It was scored a draw, but Uncle Creepy was rallying hard. And I really think that was a turning point for both those guys' careers because I think if you ask anyone, Uncle Creepy would have won that 4th round. And then it would have been Creepy versus Joe B. We don't know what would have happened with both guys' careers. Instead, they got the rematch. Mighty Mouse won it convincingly. And Mighty Mouse turned into a pound-for-pound champion. And Uncle Creepy, I mean, he's scrapping to get a title shot. And along with Dodson, he's definitely up there as far as maybe getting a title shot next. So I'm very interested to see what happens with the flyweight division. Ramses Cocksucker, are you still on the line? What do you think of the flyweight championship between Mighty Mouse and Chris Cariaso? Was it a work?
John Jones is the biggest piece of shit in MMA, and this fight
agree.
only confirmed it. The reason we had to watch Mighty Mouse versus this, I don't even know who he was. I never even heard of Chris Cariaso until this fight was announced. Never even heard of him. Again, we were forced to humiliate ourselves and purchase this pay-per-view, with DJ headlining. They made us do that because John Jones, what was it? He hurt his hand or his ankle? I don't even remember.
His ankle,
what it was.
even though he apparently got ankle surgery, and fucking like a day and a half later, a video comes out with him and Mike Tyson joking around at SummerSlam, and he's like hopping in and out on his feet. Like, what? Like, you just got ankle surgery, but you're fucking joking around, jumping back and forth. Come on, John Jones, you are a clown.
Exactly.
God damn, pussy, you're still there?
It was ridiculous. TMZ had footage of John Jones and Hulk Hogan breakdancing at the club hours after his so-called surgery. It was bullshit. He was injured in the brawl against DC, but this kid takes any
pussy,
out.
are you still there?
So he backed out, and that's why we had to watch Demetrius Johnson fill in. We had to watch another Hobbit brawl. I personally did buy the pay-per-view, but I didn't stick around to watch this fight. Nobody did, not even in Vegas. The only reason this fight happens to be recorded as official is because the timekeeper was volunteered to stick around and actually document this fight. I didn't even know who won up until this very broadcast tonight. Nobody cares what's next for DJ. Chris Cariaso, man, whatever. I wish him nothing but the best. God bless him and Joe Soto and Pat Cummings and Early Latifi. You're welcome.
That's right, you are welcome. Shit, I was not ready for the quick cutoff, but I guess that does it for UFC 178, us breaking it down. We did get a couple of tweets, of course, from the JG and saying McCall would have won. That's the closest anyone's come. Second only to Dodson, but Demetrius Johnson has evolved so much. Shit, I guess let's move straight on to the news. You can tell I was looking for the sound clip as I drew out the two. We gotta start with it. It probably is the biggest news of the week. Chael Sonnen and good old JR, they're going to be announcing together this Friday at Battlegrounds MMA. Ross, I want to throw it to you first. Are you going to be watching, and how pumped are you for the premiere of maybe the best MMA announcing duo in the history of the sport?
Well, of course I'll be watching. I don't know if I'll be watching live. I'm actually going up to Albany to visit some family this weekend from Friday to Sunday, so I do not know if I will watch live, but I will be watching at some point. I will never miss that. It's going to be quite the show. It's going to be an interesting show, to say the least. I don't know how it's going to sound. Who knows how it's going to sound, but one way or another, we're going to be entertained.
I do have
Ramses,
to agree with him once again. Yeah, definitely.
What the fuck do you think
Ross.
about Chael and JR? Your bastard son. He's taking the easy route with you.
Yeah, I mean, who can deny that Jim Ross announcing, calling a fight next to Chael Sonnen, that alone, you don't even fuck what they're calling, what type of match it is. Hope, and guess what? This happens to be a weird ass 8-man elimination tournament. I mean, these people,
Cody
these
McKenzie,
fighters.
shout out.
Yeah, Cody McKenzie. He's been on my show. It's good times.
Drunk as
But yeah,
fuck.
I allegedly. I mean, did the Eagle have a breathalyzer? I don't know. I don't
He
know.
would have blown over a .3.
Yep. And I believe also Elena was a witness to that. Shout out to Elena there. I know all the guys met up with you, and can't say enough good things about you.
Shout out.
Yeah. That husband better hold on to you, because watch out, they're coming. Anyway, Cody McKenzie's gonna be, he thinks he's gonna beat 3 guys in one night. All right, cool. That alone, I'll pay $19.95 just to see him attempt to do. But with Chael and good old JR calling these fights, this is gonna be an instant classic. It's on a Friday. I got nothing better to do. I'll have a massage girl over that night, but I am going to purchase this. Unfortunately, Time Warner, I'm finding out, does not offer the pay-per-view, but fortunately, anyone can watch it, stream it live by the pay-per-view online. I just wish I had done my homework and had the actual website, something like gpl.tv or some crap like that. Yeah, you'll find it. Just follow any one of us on Twitter. You'll find the damn link. 1995 people for an 8-man elimination tournament. The winner is going to win because he fought 3 dudes in one fucking night. It doesn't happen often. I don't even know how this is legal.
Cody
sanctioned.
McKenzie's going to lose in the first round.
I hope he wins the whole damn thing. I mean, can you imagine Cody with a belt around him? It'd be the goofiest fucking thing you've ever seen. And that's the word on the street. God bless Chael Sonnen. You're welcome.
Ross Finkelstein, what do you think about the pairing of Chael Sonnen and good old JR? Or wait.
Jake, I already gave my opinion.
Yo, look, I may have been smoking this weed called Training Day. And I just called you Jake. Because that's what Denzel Washington calls people in that movie.
Next segment.
Let's move to the next segment. Kung Lee with a 12-month suspension. We all saw it coming. Alright, we all knew that he was juicing to the gills, so it's good he got popped. But do you like that the UFC is sending in lots of random drug tests? It seems like we're finding more and more people testing positive. I've heard. I think Chris sort of sides with the whole camp of let him juice. They did in the past. You can't penalize them for doing it because now they've got to do it to sort of have normal levels. But at the same fucking time, you can't allow this sort of shit. And a lot of guys are getting popped. A lot of guys are getting punished. Ross, do you agree with the UFC starting to test a lot more? And what do you think about the Kung Lee 12-month suspension? I'm high as hell.
Well, I don't think anybody on this planet is shocked that Kung Lee is suspended. I mean, and tested positive. He was clearly on something, and you can claim lighting, and you can claim I was in a dry sauna, and you can claim all this bullshit. But at the end of the day, we know what's up. And a 40-year-old man, a 42-year-old man is not going to get that big just by getting in a sauna and training a little bit. That's not going to do it. He was clearly taking something, and he was on human growth hormone, and he tested positive, and now he's out 12 months. Nobody's surprised. I'm very happy the UFC is ramping up testing. Are they ramping it up enough? No. Lorenzo went on UFC tonight, and he claimed that the UFC is going to be testing randomly next year all 500 of his athletes. Whether or not that's actually going to happen or whether or not that's Lorenzo just speaking a bunch of bullshit, that remains to be seen. But if he's telling the truth and they're really going to go through with that, that's a great thing. And that's exactly what this sport, and I say sport like that because, there's two sides to this, but that's exactly what this sport needs. Now, there's another side to this argument, which is let everyone juice, because at the end of the day, it really isn't a sport. It's entertainment and it's a business, and this is the fight business, and it's all about money. Ranking-wise, does Conor McGregor deserve the next shot at Jose Aldo or Chad Mendez? No, Cub Swanson does, because Cub Swanson has been on this winning streak, or Dennis Bermudez does because he has the longest winning streak in the division. But Conor McGregor is going to get it because money talks. Now, I know that's a little weird because what does that have to do with steroids? But
I agree 100% though, man.
So there have been times when guys in the UFC have tested positive and you haven't heard about it. I mean, I guarantee you, I'm not going to just shout out any names because I don't want to get sued for defamation.
George St. Pierre.
There have been people in the past, big names, huge pay-per-view draws who have tested
Brock
positive.
Lesnar.
They've swept it under the rug. And I'm talking not just about pay-per-view draws. There's been a champion who has tested positive, and they swept it under the rug. I'm not going to mention any names or anything.
I will. Josh Barnett.
There's a lot of people that you don't know that have tested positive. So that's the other side to this argument. I personally want to see it clean up because I personally am going to compete in this sport. So if I'm going to compete in this sport, I don't want to fight some guy who's juiced up on every fucking steroid in the book while I'm fighting clean. So I personally want to see it cleaned up. But yeah, those are both sides to the argument.
And if you could give any topic to 2014, what is the biggest topic in MMA in 2014? It is PEDs and the choice by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, to ban TRT, ban all of that, along with the UFC, Zuffa. They are starting to get really, really big with the random drug testing and all of that. And I couldn't agree more with it. Before we go over to Ramsey's, follow him at the Aunt Jimmy Show, we actually have a caller, and it is our boy David Spears on Twitter at DavyBoy, DAVEI_BOI. Davey, what the fuck is up? What did you think about UFC 178, and what do you think about all this PED issue bullshit? Lay it on us, son.
All right. Well, first off, I want to give two shout-outs. First shout, Coach Jamie Huey. Thank you very much for following back. You're following the boy.
Fuck yeah.
And give big shout-out to Keith Berry. Can't wait to see your fight at Bellator. Knock
KO
that
Kid.
cray pussy down. So, I want to say that first off. But other than that, though, 178 card, loved it. But I did see the downplay of the main event. Thank you, John Jones, for fucking that one up. But other than that,
would have been such a stacked card if the main event was Jones Cormier. What the fuck?
That would have been epic. That would have been like UFC 200 right there. But yeah, John Jones messed it up. That's on him
again.
And yeah, it is. I mean, he lost his Nike deal. Good for him. Thank you for that one. But other than that, I saw Conor McGregor beating Dustin Poirier. Maybe because I think there is a big hype around Conor McGregor. And if you really think he's going to lose in Ireland, when he's main eventing, if he would beat Diego Brand, if he would lose Diego Brand now, that would have just watered down his name going up against Dustin Poirier, to be honest with you. I don't see how he would have lost that fight. It was a great fight, yeah, but I don't see how he could have lost that fight against Dustin Poirier. To be honest with you, Eddie Alvarez and Donald Cerrone, I was more shocked than that one. I had Donald Cerrone winning that fight, but I didn't see him beating Eddie down what he did. I mean, those leg kicks were just horrific. You just seen the pain in Eddie's face when he was chomping with those leg kicks, and it just brought down Eddie Alvarez's stock. Casagano coming back to beat Amanda Nunes. I actually had Nunes winning that fight until the second round when Cat nailed her with that DDT. I'm surprised no one talked about that one. She spiked Amanda Nunes on the head, which is illegal, but no one called it. It would have been a warning. It would have been a warning because I don't think it was intentional. I don't think Kat did it on purpose. It was just momentum. But I'm surprised no one was talking about that. But other than that, though, I was more shocked. I was shocked with that one. But overall, great card. Would have been awesome if we saw Jones and Cormier. That would have been even better. But it is what it is. Now, the PED issues, this is the first time an Asian's failed a test that I've come to realize. I'm just throwing it out there. But who would have not seen that coming, though? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you see a picture of the man, like a before and after picture of him, and the guy's
That was the lighting. It was the lighting, as he said on the Kung said on the MMA Hour that it was lighting, which I don't know if lighting can make up for that much HGH guy.
Yeah, but going back, his rebuttal on that one though was the sauna made him test positive for HGH. How in the fuck does that happen? That's the best you could do. So other than that, I mean, in reality, Kung Lee's career, I think, is on the downslope regardless. If he would have won or lost that fight anyway against Michael Bisping, the guy's over 40 years old. His last fight was against Rich Franklin, which was over a year ago, which was a stunning knockout. Don't get me wrong, but other than that, though, I mean, who else could he have fought to get to that peak to where he knocked out Rich Franklin? Really, there was nobody. No one could have fought. Kung Lee couldn't have fought anybody else to get to that level to where he fought Rich Franklin. But other than that, the PD issues, I'm still trying to figure out if New Jersey, all these other athletic commissions are still behind Nevada State Athletic Commission, because I haven't heard anybody else of the other athletic commissions coming out and saying hey, we're going to stand right behind this on this PED issues. I think it's just a Vegas thing, honestly.
Ramses, we haven't heard from you yet on the PED issue. Before we start bringing down the fights we're most pumped for October 2014, let us know what you think about the Kung Lee suspension. You and Front Row Brian were actually the people who broke that picture of him looking all juiced up and shit. Should he have gotten a year-long suspension? What are your thoughts on the UFC starting to test randomly this often?
Thanks, Jake. Yeah, me and FRB from Roe Bryan, shout out, brother of mine. We did bring this to the attention of the Twitter world. It was too ridiculous. The man was clearly. It was almost to the point where it was like he wanted to get caught. He was whichever HGH formula, mixture, drug manufacturer, whatever cocktail he was using, whatever that brand is. This was the best ad for them they could have ever hoped for. They owe Kung Lee some fucking money. But let's be honest here. Again, I look at it from the UFC side of things, looking at it as a business. This was a win-win for them. It was smart of them to immediately drug test Kung Lee right after his Bisping fight. Kung Lee was. You saw what a bloody pulp he was beaten into by Michael Bisping. And the first thing they do, before even the doctor checks him out, they make him piss that blood he pissed and the blood was already in it. So they didn't even need to get the two separate samples. All right? It was all in the one. He pissed out his blood. They took their sample first thing right away. And why would they do that? Because honestly, this fight in China was unregulated territory. There was no reason. There was no commission overseeing. There was no reason to test Kung Lee except for two things. And they were both wins for the UFC. Either to burn him, which is what happened and they're doing right now, or he miraculously passes the test and the UFC says, shove it, Front Row Brian and the Aunt Jimmy show, on your speculation that he was on the juice. Brian Stan, you better apologize now. Apologize. But nope. Either way, the UFC wins. He pops dirty. So now it looks like, the UFC got someone. When they didn't even have to test their fighter, they popped him on their own, acting as their own commission. They paid for the testing themselves. Now Kung Lee's paying the price. He's suspended a year. The UFC looks good. Looks like they're cracking down. But what did they really do? They burned a loser, and I mean that. I mean he lost the fight, and he's honestly, what is he? 37, 38, 40 years old. He's 40 something years old. This was one of the cases where you can sacrifice the pawn, and the UFC made the smartest business decision they could. $9.99. Word on the street.
Word on the goddamn street, and that, damn, he broke it down as succinctly as we can. We're going to segue into the fights we're pumped for October 2014. We do it at the start of every month. We give you the fight we're most excited for. Ramsey's going to pass the mic right back to you. What fight are you most pumped for this month in October?
No doubt in my mind, the biggest fight going down in October, as far as I'm concerned, is going to go down October 4th, this Saturday. Halifax, Canada. Darren Cruikshank taking on Andrew Kawani. It is the main event of the Fox Sports prelims. Not the Fight Pass prelims, Fox Sports. So, finally, Darren Cruikshank once again main eventing a prelim card. And you'll see why. This kid is also on fire. He gives you more dynamic strikes than you ever see from Cowboy Cerrone. I mean, Cruikshank fighting, dude. The power. You can feel the crush with every strike. He's going to whoop Andrew Kawani's ass. Hands down. He knows what the people want now. He is a future champion. I've called it before. I'll say it again now. Cruikshank, Andrew Kawani, October 4th. UFC Fight Night in Halifax. McDonald versus Safadine headlining, but this is the true fight to watch. You're welcome.
Davey boy, you're still on the line. Give us the fight you're most pumped for this coming month, October.
Man, it actually is not going to be a UFC fight. It's actually going to be a Bellator fight. Keith Berry versus Joe Pacheco. I was listening to the word on the street, and I was listening to Keith Berry talk about his fight coming up. Yeah. I'm a true fan of that. I'm a true fan of that fighter, and I will be watching that over here in Guam. That will be the next Bellator middleweight champion when he knocks out the lay and pray pussy Joe Pacheco.
Damn, digging deep into Bellator, we are going to be rooting on Keith Berry, a guest of the Word on the Street podcast, and an extreme couture fighter. We love all those guys. I got to go with Chad Mendez against Jose Aldo, UFC 129, UFC 179 in Brazil. The first fight, it looked like a clean ending, but you watch, and he grabbed the cage. That's how he was able to turn around and get that knee. I think Chad Mendez is going to be a hell of an opponent. I think the winner of that fight is going to be the king of the division. It is going to be an incredible war. I cannot wait.
The king of the division, Jake. You're right. Conor McGregor. Because the fight I'm most pumped for is actually the same fight as yours, except there's a slight change of plans. You see, Chad Mendez is not going to be fighting Jose Aldo at UFC 179. And anybody that believes that fight is going to happen, well, you were sadly mistaken. You see, Conor McGregor is not going to Brazil for nothing. Conor McGregor is not going to Brazil just to sit front row and watch a fight. Conor McGregor is going to fight. Irishmen don't make trips just to watch. Irishmen make trips to get in there and just throw hands. He wants to fight Jose Aldo, and he is going to fight Jose Aldo, and he's going to fight for the world championship, and he's going to be the world champion, I truly believe. He had a vision. The vision's going to come true. Conor McGregor will fight Jose Aldo. The Irishman is going to be your UFC featherweight champion. Conor McGregor, the dream will come true. That's all I got to say. I'm getting out of here. I got to go to sleep because I got to get up to train tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Follow me on Twitter at Ross Finkelstein, E before the L. I'm out of here. I'm dropping the mic. Peace.
That's it with a Jew. Follow him on Twitter, E before the L. Reams, is it true that he is your bastard son?
Yes, he is. I will admit that, but I had nothing to do with his upbringing. When his mother, who I, I don't
Rose.
even know if we ever were. Yes, Rose Finkelstein. If we were ever actually dating, if she wants to claim that, I'll give it to her. But when she came to me and told me I'm having a kid and it's a Jew, I left that night. I packed my bags. All right, I ain't raising no Jew son. Nothing against Jews, but it's everything against Ross Finkelstein. Follow him on Twitter just to see me destroy him. Word on the street. Nothing against faggots, but I'm tired of seeing all these queers in the UFC.
That's right. We will move swiftly on. One last topic I want to get to before we break down the 2 weekends cards. Rashad Evans saying he wants to step in against Alexander Gustafsson. We were going to see Rumble Johnson take on Gus, and the winner of that fight probably would have gotten the next title fight at 205. But now that Rumble Johnson is suspended indefinitely with domestic violence issues, I don't know if that's an animal or a baby or what the fuck is going on. We cannot just ignore that and pretend that didn't happen. Davey boy, what was that chirping in the background? And what do you think about Rashad Evans maybe taking on Alexander Gustafsson for a title shot at 205? Should he get it?
That was my little Davey boy. I had to give him a little
God
give him a
bless
little
him.
pep talk.
Shout
God
out
bless him.
Mini Davey.
Yeah,
what's
Vinny
up,
Davey.
dude?
Yeah, no. Rashad Evans fighting Alexander Gustafsson. I think that's going to be a good fight in a sense when you size him up. But I think leading into it, I mean, Rashad coming being away from action for a good minute, going up against Gustafsson when he's been fresh into the cage and stuff like that. And I think that fight's supposed to be in Sweden. I think that's gonna lead more towards Gustafsson to win that fight. Hometown love and stuff like that. I'm not gonna say that it's not gonna be an entertaining fight or Rashad's not gonna just lay down for anybody, but hey, calm down, boy. but other than that, yeah, he's giving me some swift rights. But he's telling me to go for Rashad, but I had to go with Gustafsson on that one.
What you think, Ramses?
Sorry, there's a delay when I'm clicking for some reason. I'll have to get that sorted out. But Rashad Gustafsson, this is coming out of nowhere. It barely appeals to some people. It's like a filler fight, where you have that filler track on your favorite album. I mean, you'll listen to it every now and then. We'll watch this fight. Rashad's gonna have to actually answer shit. It ain't gonna be no dancing, playing around. It ain't gonna be no Dan Henderson huggy match. Rashad's gonna have to rewind the clock back at least 10 years to make this a good fight and have a chance. But unless he gets lucky and Gustafsson for some reason has just a weak chin moment, Rashad's probably just gonna get decisioned out. I don't expect anything big if this fight actually does happen, and I don't think it will. There's other shit to book, and I don't know, Rashad, man. Nobody, you're not moving the needle. I'm sorry. Chael put you over. He tried to save you. He bought you a little time, but I'm afraid you might be getting a knock on the door soon. You know what I'm saying? You're welcome.
Word on the street. And before we move on to the weekend's cards, I actually wanted to talk about this. Johnny Hendricks, he's going to be fighting Robbie Lawler in a rematch on December 6th. We didn't know when that was going to happen, but now that Weidman versus Belfort has been postponed, Hendricks Lawler 2 has been slotted in there at UFC 181. Johnny Hendricks opening as a pretty big favorite, minus 285 against Lawler's plus 225. Man, I think it's going to be a close fight. I would really jump on those odds for Robbie Lawler. Davey, what do you think about the odds? Do you think Johnny should be that much of a favorite against the challenger Robbie Lawler, who really gave him a run for his money back at UFC 171, I believe it was?
I don't know. I mean, it seems Vegas odds have been pretty accurate for the past 3 or 4 months, in my opinion. I don't know, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be a closer fight. I think Robbie, he learned from his mistakes when he fought Johnny Hendricks the first time. I think he's going to go out there and really pull the trigger. I mean, he's been waiting a long time to like get to this point, and I think he needed to lose to realize that, like, you know what, work on this a lot more, and he did against when he fought Matt Brown. He beat the shit out of Matt Brown, in my opinion. I don't see how. I think it's going to be a lot closer in the favor of Robbie Lawler, that belt from Johnny Hendricks. I mean, them moving that card from December to November, I think. It is November. Yeah, November. They're moving to November. But anyways, and word on the street is on this one is like, Hendricks is like 230 pounds, and he has to up his diet. So we know, like, back in the when he fought Robbie Lawler the first time, he had to come back to reweigh in and make 170.
It's going to be December 6th.
Oh, December. Okay, they were supposed to fight in February, and then it leads to December. My bad. But either way, I mean, now he has to up his diet again. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I see Lawler. I see Lawler winning this fight this time. It's gonna be like GSP fight Matt Hughes the second time, and he won. And I see it the same way.
And I can't wait to break down the card because we have a lot of really fun fights. Todd Duffy coming back. We have Tony Ferguson versus Abel Trujillo in what will be a very underrated lightweight bout. We got Travis Brown taking on Brendan Schaub. I'm sure Ramsey will be very outspoken about that bout. But let's talk about it now and what will probably be the main event of that card, UFC 181, at the Mandalay Bay Event Center at in Las Vegas, Nevada, December 6th. Which way are you leaning, Hendricks or Lawler, Ramses?
Well, Hendricks whooped his ass the first time. I have no reason to suspect.
48-47 though. It was close.
They gave it to Hendricks for a reason.
I don't think he won the fight until he secured that takedown in the 5th round.
Yeah, but I mean, like, everyone agrees that he won the fight, in my opinion, except if you're like a Lawler, like, diehard. I'm sorry, you can see and recognize the fact that Hendricks won that fight. So I have no reason to suspect anything's going to be different in the next fight, the rematch.
Smoke one for the ghost of GSP's knees.
I'm loading it up right now. Here's the baggie here. This is called Night Train. Night Train, people. Best blend in Austin, going down straight up. If you want some, DM.
I'm smoking that shit called Training Day.
Oh, yeah, Jake.
If you have not seen Training Day and you do not know that my name is Jake, the irony might be lost on you. But,
yeah, man. Hendricks takes this one. He's been waiting just till he's healthy again. He breaks his hands like you wouldn't believe. But they're healing back together. He's gonna take this one again, barring some sort of just blatant mistake or something. But honestly, the UFC doesn't want either of these men to be champions. They're not gonna move too many pay-per-views, to be honest. It's time to move in the new blood, which is what they're actually setting up. So this fight right here, just another your average run-of-the-mill pay-per-view. I'll buy it, but it's one of these things. If Lawler does win, it just means fucking third match, rubber match, part 3, and nobody wants to see that. So Hendricks, wrap it up and then take on somebody else. That's my advice.
I like your take. I like the rematch between Johnny and Robbie. Robbie has mounted such a monumental comeback. I love Johnny Hendricks to death, but I don't know. It would be a shame for Robbie to mount this huge, rally and not end up getting a championship. Last topic before we move to this weekend's UFC cards. And I'm sort of going back to Kat Zingano getting a title shot, but, it really is one of the biggest topics. Who does she get next? We've got the strawweights, which we will see a champion once the tough finales are all done with. But Ronda Rousey, she'll probably fight Kat next. But honestly, who do you guys think poses the biggest threat to her? Is it Cyborg? coming in. Dana has said they're not going to bring her in until she's fought at bantamweight, but she is going to be fighting in bantamweight soon. So the UFC could bring her in this year. Holly Holm, the UFC has brought her in. Is her boxing enough to stop Ronda Rousey? Kat Zingano is probably going to get the next shot. Gina Carano. Davey, who do you think poses the biggest threat to knocking off Ronda Rousey? Who UFC wise, she is foreseeably in the next few years the best female fighter the organization has ever seen.
I believe Davey has left.
Davey has dipped out. Then what do you think, Ramses?
That's the problem, and it's going to be huge and glaring here in the next 6 months. I don't believe there's anybody to actually legitimately compete against Ronda Rousey at this time. I don't think Kat Zingano's got anything for her. Unfortunately, I love her to death. I love you, Jessica, but Jessica, I don't think can beat her at this point. Who else is even in the? You have to eventually just start throwing people at her just because you can't think of anyone else. The Gina Carano thing fell through. Cyborg is the most compelling fight, probably the last big money chance the UFC has, so they're probably pursuing that heavily right now. But honestly, that one's even going to be a wash. Cyborg's going to get run over, in my opinion. Just doesn't have much. Ronda has every reason to beat her, except just some freak flash punch in the face. So, yeah, man, there's nothing for Ronda right now. There is nothing. She is the best in the world. And, yeah, so the UFC is fucked. It's like you get a big money, super shining star. It's on fire right now, but you don't have any wood to set it on. The tinder, it's all lit. It's ready to burn. It's a hot coal, but you ain't got nothing.
Hot takes.
You ain't got nothing to build. It's ridiculous. You're out in the woods. It's freezing. You're dead. That's the word on the street.
And we will move on. Talking about having not enough wood, setting fires. The UFC. I like that they're doing a lot of events, but some of these cards are very shallow. We're going to start with Nelson versus Story. It's going to be a fight we see Saturday afternoon because it's taking place at the Ericsson Globe Arena in Stockholm, Sweden. I'll spare you the entire card, aside from the fact that Tor Trong, Team Darkside, will be fighting Cathal Pendrin, tough standout, Dennis Seaver, Ilir Latifi, but I just want to talk about Gunnar Nelson against Rick Story. It's going to be a very interesting match. Rick Story, that guy is a brick. He's got tough wrestling, tough striking, but he's taking on Gunnar Nelson, who, that guy's jits, it is fucking insane. I think he ends up getting a second or third round finish. What do you think?
I think it is ridiculous that Gunnar Nelson and Rick Story are headlining a UFC event. Even though Gunnar Nelson is definitely one of the best prospects in the division, in the UFC overall, in MMA overall, I meant to say. So for that reason alone, I buy it. Like I understand it, but it is a little bit rushed here, and yeah, this card is pretty fucking thin. Luckily it's all on Fight Pass, so I guess but shit, if this was the only Fight Pass event you were watching this month, you'd be like, oh shit, $9.99. Fuck, Gunnar, no, maybe. Damn. I got Gunnar Nelson, obviously, but what the Rick Story on a headliner? They almost lost me right there, and that's the bottom line. Tor Trong, though, good luck. Team Darkside.
And I wish the second card of Saturday that takes place, the main card starts at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. It's not that much more stacked. We do have Darren Cruikshank and Anthony Njokuani, which I don't know why they buried this fight on the prelims, because it might be the most interesting fight on the card.
It's headlining the Fox Sports prelims.
Yeah, we have Jason Sago against Paul Frater, Patrick Houlihan versus Chad Kalades. A few names, Elias Thurdo versus Bruno Santos on the main card. Brian Caraway taking on Rafael Asunciao. Before we get into Rory versus Tarek, do any of these prelims stand out? Obviously, Cruikshank versus Anthony Njokuani. And I'm really looking forward to watching Nordin Talib versus Li Jiangliang. It sounds like that's a joke because these guys aren't well known at all, but I've seen them on previous cards and they're very quick, and the striking should be fun to watch.
Got to be honest on this card. I ran out of gas earlier. I really talked about the only fight worth mentioning on the prelims here, and that is Darren Cruikshank versus Njokuani. My fight to watch, my beatdown, my expected beatdown of October. This is it. The other ones, I'll watch the Patrick Hooligan because his first fight was utterly ridiculous. He was using unorthodox strikes, the likes of which we haven't seen since Brian Eversole versus Chris Lytle. So those are the only two fights that excite me.
What do you think about Rory versus Tarek?
This is another one of these, does this even affect the rankings? What is this fight? It's a filler. It's another filler fight. Roy's just going to show up, point fight as usual. Safadin's going to just not fight smart, not realize all he has to do is punch this kid in his stupid face. And we're going to see probably a decision. Maybe Rory drops him or something. But I'm not expecting too much.
I couldn't agree more. I think Rory's going to point fight him, and that's going to be the bottom line. Follow us on Twitter at the MMA Podcast. Visit themapodcast.com. Ramses, where do we follow your ass?
Whoever told my Twitter girlfriends that I live and get around in a wheelchair, that I have sexually transmitted diseases, and that I don't believe in God, you should stop spreading these lies immediately. And they're saying I smoke weed all the time, drink, get prostitutes. They're spreading lies about me, and I will find you. I am the Aunt Jimmy Show on Twitter. I am the word on the street.
We'll see you tomorrow night on the Word on the Street podcast, and we will see you next week. Until then, we gone, cocksuckers. On Twitter at the MMA Podcast, themapodcast.com. We gone.
One fight, flow with the gold. In a hit on and Holly note that to continue to win, we must continue to grow.